The moon cast a pale glow over the dense forest as the sound of muffled sobs echoed through the trees. Adisa, bound and terrified, was carried deeper into the woods by her stepfather, Jabori. "You thought you could marry the prince behind our backs," Jabori hissed. "You evil girl." Adisa's heart pounded as she struggled in vain. Once upon a time, in the vibrant village of Kanima, nestled between rolling hills and lush forest, a young prince named Kwame returned home from studying abroad. He had spent many years learning about the world and was now filled with excitement to be back in his beloved village. The people of Kanima rejoiced, for they adored their prince, who was kind and wise beyond his years. As Kwame stepped out of the royal car, he was greeted by his parents, King Boko and Queen Efua. The villagers gathered around, singing and dancing to welcome their prince. Kwame smiled, feeling the warmth and love of his people. Among the crowd was a beautiful maiden named Zoe, who had been chosen and raised to be his wife since childhood. But Kwame had different ideas about love and marriage. That evening, Kwame sat with his parents in the grand palace. He looked at his mother and father, his heart heavy with the words he needed to say. "Mother, father, I have something important to tell you," Kwame began. "While I respect our traditions and appreciate that Zoe has been raised to be my wife, I believe that marriage should be based on true love." King Boko and Queen Efua exchanged glances but nodded, understanding their son's heart. "We understand, Kwame," the king said gently. "We will host a grand welcome party where you can meet all the maidens of the village and choose a bride." Kwame smiled with relief. "Thank you, father, mother. I want to find someone who loves me for who I am, not just because I am a prince." The next morning, the town crier, Mosi, went around the village announcing the grand party. "Hear ye, hear ye. The prince is hosting a welcome party. All maidens are invited to attend and meet Prince Kwame." In a small, humble house at the edge of the village, a man named Jabori heard the announcement. He had two daughters, Amina and Laila, and a stepdaughter named Adisa. Jabori was thrilled at the thought of one of his daughters winning the prince's favor. "Amina, Laila," Jabori called excitedly. "Get ready for the banquet. I am sure one of you will catch the prince's eye." Jabori turned to Adisa, his face stern. "Adisa, you will wash our clothes and prepare us for the banquet. Do not think of attending." Adisa, unlike her stepsisters, was kind-hearted and gentle. However, her stepfather and stepsisters treated her cruelly. They gave her all the difficult chores, mocked her, and made her life miserable. She longed for kindness and love but found none in her home. On the day of the party, Jabori gave Adisa a long list of chores. "You will fetch water, fill all the water drums, and wash all our dirty clothes. You are not to go to the party, do you understand?" Adisa nodded, her heart heavy with sadness. She took the laundry to the stream, working tirelessly to complete her tasks. As she washed the clothes, tears mixed with the water, but she kept on, not wanting to anger her stepfather further. While Adisa was at the stream, a kind neighbor named Nia approached her. Nia often saw Adisa working hard and felt sorry for her. "Adisa, are you not going to the banquet?" Nia asked gently. Adisa shook her head. "I have too many chores, and I have nothing to wear. Besides, my stepfather forbade me from going." Nia smiled warmly. "I have nothing fancy to wear either, but it will be fun to watch the excitement. Let me help you with your chores. Together we can finish them quickly." Adisa hesitated but then agreed. With Nia's help, the chores were done in no time. Adisa was grateful for her neighbor's kindness. As the villagers dressed in their finest clothes and headed to the banquet, Nia and Adisa washed up and prepared to go. Adisa's clothes were old and faded, but Nia reassured her. "Don't worry, Adisa. We will stand at the back. No one will notice," Nia said. Adisa nodded, and together they made their way to the grand party. The village square was decorated with colorful banners and filled with laughter and music. Adisa and Nia found a spot at the back, watching the festivities from a distance. The banquet was in full swing, with maidens from all over the village gathered to meet Prince Kwame. The prince stood tall and handsome, greeting each maiden with a kind smile. But his eyes kept searching the crowd, looking for something special. Adisa and Nia stood too far to see the prince's face clearly. They watched as Amina and Laila, dressed in beautiful clothes, tried to catch the prince's attention. Adisa felt a pang of sadness but reminded herself she was just there to watch. Suddenly, Prince Kwame's eyes fell on Adisa. Her simple beauty and gentle demeanor captivated him. He couldn't take his eyes off her. Adisa, feeling someone watching her, looked up and locked eyes with Jabari. Her heart raced, and she quickly looked away, hoping she hadn't been noticed. Jabari had spotted Adisa. His face twisted with anger. Knowing she was caught, Adisa whispered to Nia, "I must go. My stepfather has seen me." She ran back home, her heart pounding with fear of the punishment that awaited her. Little did she know, Prince Kwame was determined to find out who she was. Prince Kwame couldn't stop thinking about the girl he saw at the banquet. He asked his guards to find out who she was, but no one knew. He decided to take matters into his own hands. Every afternoon, Kwame sneaked away from the palace to walk in the village and forest. One day, as he walked, he heard a beautiful voice singing. He followed the sound and found Adisa collecting firewood. Kwame approached her slowly, not wanting to scare her. "Excuse me," he said gently. "Can I hear you sing some more?" Adisa, startled, looked up. She didn't recognize the prince in his simple clothes. "I am in a hurry," she replied. "But if you come here every other day, you can hear me sing." Kwame smiled. "I will be here," he promised. True to his word, Prince Kwame met Adisa every other day in the forest. At first, he just listened to her sing, enchanted by her voice. Gradually, they began to talk and share their hopes and dreams. Kwame described his travels and the wonders he had seen. Adisa spoke of her love for nature and her dream of a kind and loving family. They never introduced themselves, each enjoying the mystery of their friendship. Adisa never spoke of her hardships at home, and Kwame didn't reveal his identity. Despite this, they looked forward to their meetings, finding solace in each other's company. Back at home, Adisa's stepfather and stepsisters noticed a change in her. She seemed happier and more at peace, especially after fetching firewood. They became suspicious and decided to follow her. One afternoon, they trailed her into the forest and hid behind a tree. They watched as she sang and talked with a mysterious young man. When they realized it was Prince Kwame, they were shocked and furious. They rushed back home to tell Jabari. "Father, Adisa is meeting the prince in the forest," Amina exclaimed. Jabari's face twisted with anger. "We must stop her. She cannot marry the prince." That night, Jabari, Amina, and Laila plotted to get rid of Adisa. They couldn't bear the thought of her becoming queen and having a good life while they had to bow to her. "We will tie her up and abandon her in the deepest part of the forest," Jabari said. "The wild animals or starvation will take care of her." They were convinced the prince would forget about Adisa once she was gone. That evening, when Adisa returned home from the forest, her stepfamily was unusually quiet. A sense of unease settled in her heart, but she tried to shake it off. She finished her chores and went to bed. In the dead of night, Jebori, and his daughters snuck into Adisa's room. They tied her up and put her in a sack. "You thought you could marry the prince behind our backs," Jebori hissed. "You evil girl." Adisa's eyes widened with realization. "The prince? My friend in the forest is the prince," she pleaded, promising to stay away from him if they spared her, but they ignored her cries. Jebori carried her deep into the forest, far from any path. He dumped her on the ground and left her there, believing she would never return. The next day, Kwame arrived at their usual meeting spot, but Adisa was nowhere to be seen. He waited, hoping she would appear, but she never did. He began to worry, fearing something terrible had happened. When she missed their next appointment, Kwame's worry turned to dread. He sent palace guards to investigate, giving them all the information he could about her. Kwame's guards searched the village, asking about Adisa. They learned about her harsh living conditions and reported back to the prince. Kwame's heart broke, but he focused on finding her. He decided to confront her stepfather. When Jebori entered the throne room, he was shocked to see the king and prince with stern faces. Kwame didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Where is Adisa?" he demanded. Jebori, masking his fear, lied. "She ran off with a man from the next village." Kwame didn't believe him but had no proof. The king gave Kwame 2 days to find Adisa, or else another banquet would be held for him to choose another bride. 3 days after being abandoned, an old hunter found Adisa unconscious but barely alive. He carried her out of the forest and called a medicine man. They fed her water and porridge, nursing her back to health. When Adisa finally woke up, she cried and told the hunter her story. The hunter was moved by her tale and decided to help her. The old hunter and Adisa made their way back to the village. They arrived while the second banquet was in full swing. The hunter sought an audience with the king, and Adisa, though weak, insisted on telling her story. When they entered the banquet hall, the music stopped, and everyone turned to look. The stepfather and stepsisters grew pale with fear. The prince saw Adisa and rushed to her. Adisa and the hunter knelt before the king and prince, greeting them respectfully. Adisa recounted her ordeal, tears streaming down her face. The villagers gasped in shock and anger at her stepfamily's cruelty. The king, furious, ordered Jebori, Amina, and Laila to be brought before him. They tried to flee but were quickly caught. Jebori and his daughters were banished from the village, never to return. With her tormentors gone, Adisa felt a weight lifted from her shoulders. Prince Kwame took her hand and helped her stand. "You have been through so much," he said gently. "But you are safe now." Adisa smiled, tears of relief and happiness filling her eyes. "Thank you, Your Highness." Kwame looked into her eyes, filled with admiration and love. "Please, call me Kwame." The village rejoiced as Prince Kwame and Adisa were married in a grand ceremony. The king and queen welcomed Adisa into their family with open arms. Adisa's kind heart and gentle spirit won over everyone in the palace. Kwame and Adisa ruled the village with wisdom and compassion, ensuring that no one would suffer as she had. The villagers celebrated their love, knowing that true love and kindness had triumphed. And so, Adisa's life transformed from misery to happiness, teaching everyone that while evil can delay someone's blessings, it can never take them away.